Hey guys, welcome to the Pythagoras Perspective. In today's edition, we're going to be looking at the enigma, Paul Pogba. Now, there's been a lot of conjecture about what's Pogba's best position, and whether or not Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is finally getting the best out of him now that he's paired with Bruno Fernandes. I'm going to take a look at the areas of the pitch that Pogba covered during his time at Juve for the national team with France at the World Cup in 2018, and compare the tactical instructions he received during those periods of his career and compare it to what we've seen from him in a United shirt. Now, the first thing I want to establish is, what is Pogba's favourite area of the pitch? Now, every player has favourite areas of the pitch they feel comfortable in. Some have more than others and are termed versatile, but others can only be at their best in a certain pocket of space on the pitch. For example, Iniesta loved to operate in this particular small area of the pitch and became the best in the world at it. Pogba for me falls into this specific category. Now at Juventus, Pogba played in a formation which enabled him to feature exclusively in this pocket of space, albeit with a small freedom to roam, but essentially his base role involved just focusing on this area of the pitch as everyone else took care of other areas. So it was a 4-1-3-2 setup, a bit like a diamond, and you had Evra bombing down the left, taking care of holding the width of the side. You had Vidal providing support in terms of creativity and penetration so that Pogba wasn't the sole creative force in that team. And you had Marquisio chipping in on the right too. And obviously you had the two men up front. So this gave Pogba a very defined role and defined duties which enabled him to excel. Now, if you compare that to his time under Jose Mourinho, where he played mostly in a double pivot, you'll see the difference in terms of the pitch areas covered. Now, why is this so important? Well, football is a complex game and certain attributes are needed to excel in certain areas. As a double pivot, or as the team's regista, you're expected to move a lot off the ball to receive the pass and recycle possession. Be like a metronome, and you're also key in terms of keeping the defensive shape, so you need to have good positioning. You can't be lazy in terms of where you're going to place yourself once your team's not got the ball. Passing wise, you need a high accuracy rate, ideally in the 90s, and decision making needs to be on point. Caution is key rather than too many killer passes with a heightened element of risk. Due to the fact you're playing so close to your own defense, any loss of possession will be fatal. Ball carrying skills are important because you have to be press resistant. But it must be efficient. It must be only used to merely defeat the press and create space to get passes off. You can't be too laboured on the ball, otherwise the tempo drops, and if you are caught on the ball, as I mentioned before, the defence is left exposed. Now, does any of that seem to match Pogba in terms of his general approach to the game? No, hence why he was such a bad fit in the double pivot position. Can Pogba play as a 10 in a completely free roaming role in an attacking sense? Well, Mourinho, when he played a free-man midfield, which was rare but he did, used Carrick or Matic as the CDM and would restrict the other box-to-box midfielder, usually Ander Herrera, from getting forward. So in essence, it wasn't really a 4-3-3. It was still a double pivot but with Pogba in the number 10 position. Pogba thus became the team's sole creative force, and in a way it's de facto number 10. This was different to his role in Juve, where he had Vidal taking a huge amount of creative and goal-scoring pressure off his shoulders. Jose was, in effect, expecting Pogba to be his Wesley Sneijder, or his Deco. But in truth, the Frenchman has never really had the stats which matched up to those type of players, or a Kevin De Bruyne in terms of goals and assists in a single season. He's never really single-handedly carried a side like KDB did with Wolfsburg. And he's not really a reliable match-winning force week in, week out. So again, this role was ill-suited for Pogba. Despite some flashes of brilliance in this free-roaming attacking role, it was clear to see he was unsuited to this role in the long term. Why? Well, 10s or sole creative playmakers need great movement off the ball to link play across the attacking third. And this movement is important because then you can evade detection from the opposition CDM. A big static 10 like Pogba who's easy to follow is not going to cause major problems, even if he's super strong, as long as the CDM themselves is physically quite formidable. Furthermore, number 10 needs top tier football IQ. and consistently intricate passing, be nimble on the ball due to it being a very congested area of the pitch that they're working in, and they need to be a consistent goal threat. Again, none of this seems to match Pogba's attributes. Now, the reason why I mentioned Iniesta early in the piece was I think he's similar to Pogba in terms of their tactical preferences and also certain personality characteristics. Both didn't want the responsibility of being the regista or the number 10, but they wanted to have a role in between, a niche type of role where they can roam down the left, help control the game, assist with it, help create and score the odd goal too, but be more of a supporting role or part of a team of creators rather than the solo creator or part of the spine of the side. Now, this support role allows them to indulge and be the icing on the cake, yet prove incredibly important in elite encounters between two top sides. Why are they more important in these type of games? Well, these type of players are niche tactical features, and they come alive in big games because space is at a premium, and these fancy players are so technically gifted and so unique. It's quite hard for opposition coaches to come up with tactical formulas to stop them and cater for their brilliance. So does United's current setup allow Pogba to play in his favourite area of the pitch? In my opinion, not to its fullest extent, but it is an improvement compared to what we saw under Jose. Oli is playing with two advanced 8s, which does allow Pogba to roam down this left side, but in truth, Bruno is slightly more advanced, and that means Pogba has to be a bit more disciplined and track back more often than he would want. And when you consider the fact that he currently has an aging Matic behind him, it means he has to do a lot more defensive work than you would want Pogba to be doing. Furthermore, Matic does not have the same ability to play make from deep he once did. Again, his legs are an issue. And in intense high-tempo encounters where the other team is a lot more tactically sophisticated and is able to press high up the pitch, Matic is having to work a lot harder to find space to pick up the ball and protect the ball. And therefore, Pogba is expected to come deep and assist with the moving of the ball out of the defensive third, which he's not particularly gifted at. He lacks the movement himself to defeat the press, and he lacks awareness of players around him. Hence why he gets caught on the ball so often. He doesn't really look over his shoulder when he's receiving the ball in deeper areas. So how do United solve this issue of getting the best out of Paul Pogba? What else can they do to improve upon what Ollie's already started? Well, first, it's a simple solution. Upgrade the CDM position. They need a youngish midfielder, someone who's got a lot more energy in their legs, who can carry out the huge defensive workload single-handedly, as well as possessing the technical ability to run the game from deeper areas, transitioning that ball out of the defensive third without needing their handheld. So in my opinion, someone like Idrissa Gueye, Kante, they can do this. They're the type of players United should be looking for. But someone who's of the right age and ability and someone who's available is Thomas Partey. I think he's the right man for the job. If you watch him closely, he's got brilliant ability in tight spaces. He's got those long legs and that energy and that defensive IQ to control a large area of space from a defensive perspective. And he can also ball carry himself, so he wouldn't necessarily always be feeding it to Pogba. He can take on the burden himself from playmaking from deeper areas. Another key upgrade I think that's vital in getting the best out of Pogba, especially if he wants to roam down this left side, is upgrading the left back position, because United's left wing forwards are all right footed, and if Sancho comes in, he's still another right footer. So again, Pogba's coming in from the left onto his right foot. Martial, Rashford, Sancho, they'll all be doing the same thing. So there needs to be a consistent source of width and penetration down that left, and for me, Luke Shaw doesn't quite provide it, as much as he's improved recently. At Juve, Pogba had Evra down the left. So United need a more enterprising fullback. In an ideal world, that would be someone like Alphonso Davies, although of course he's going to be incredibly hard to prize from a club like Bayern Munich. Now, taking a brief look at his time with the national side, it was apparent that Pogba also had to feature in a suboptimal role, ever since Deschamps has taken charge. If we look in that World Cup final against Croatia, even though he scored the goal, and retrospectively a lot of people rated Pogba's performance during that World Cup, I don't think he was at his best from a tactical point of view. I thought he was caught on the ball a lot during that World Cup final. Yes, he has some good moments on the ball, but if you compare the the quality of his overall play to say someone like Xavi in the latter end of elite level tournaments and finals. You know, it's not comparable. Xavi's ability worlds ahead of what you'd expect from someone like Pogba. He looked like someone who's playing out of position, and just due to his overall sheer level of talent within himself, but also the team around him, he was able to get through by playing in that position. But he's not someone I would trust in that position time and time again. So moving on technically, what does Pogba have in his locker? What does he need to improve? For me, his shooting is very inconsistent. He clearly can score very eye-catching goals, but during games he skies a lot of efforts, and his shot consistency is nowhere near a Gerrard or a Kevin De Bruyne. His long passing is probably his best attribute, and he can hit wonderful passes with both feet, and that is why attacking fullbacks are key to getting the best out of Pogba, because he can find them and switch the play more effectively. But for me, United don't really take advantage of this at the moment from a tactical point of view. His killer passing is very good, and that is why at the moment, with Matic making him drop too deep, Pogba's too far away from goal, and this aspect of his game is going under the radar. He needs to be closer to goal and be enabled to get more assists, as this is an underrated aspect of his game. For me, he's got great technique and great vision and great subtlety with his passes. In terms of his dribbling, well, we know Pogba's one of the game's finest technicians, but due to his sheer size, he's quite easy to keep track of, as he doesn't really have that elusive factor of a Iniesta or a Lionel Messi. And that's why for me, he shouldn't be looking to dribble too deep and close to goal, because he's quite easy to pin down. Instead, he should utilise it when he's on the run in wider areas or in the attacking third, where it can prove more effective. With regards to Pogba's heading, it's an underrated aspect of his game, and I'd like to see him a lot more closer to goal and keep making late runs into the box. For me, it has to be a balance between him and Bruno as to who bombs forward, otherwise teams will clock on to the fact that Bruno is the sole attacking midfielder in United's setup, and United will become too predictable. Whereas if you look at the way Man City played with David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne, they sort of shared the playmaking duties between them. So for me, United need to do that with Pogba and free him up a little bit compared to what he's currently doing under Oli. Defensively, Pogba's a mixed bag. He's a good tackler, but for me, he doesn't have the concentration span to defend effectively for 90 minutes, and therefore, in my opinion, he's a defensive liability. So it's important that he's surrounded by grafters and people who are athletically gifted, not someone like Matic. That can work against smaller teams where they're completely sitting off, but in a team where the opposition's a bit more technically and tactically more sophisticated, I don't think that partnership works for me in the long term. In conclusion, Pogba under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is tactically in a better place than he's been in for a long time, and that includes under Didier Deschamps in the national setup. However, for United to truly maximise his potential, they need to minimise his defensive work and how much time is spent doing regista type work in his own half, and free him up to dovetail with Bruno to create and score goals. So that's why getting a top-notch stellar CDM is so important. Otherwise, Pogba will remain the elephant in the room and an enigma. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed that video. Let me know your comments below on what's Pogba's best position. How would you use him? What do you think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer needs to do? And like, share and subscribe. See you guys again next time. Bye.
Spare for Guardiola, joy for Mourinho.